guys. Oh my goodness, that was embarrassing. Hey everyone. Like I said, my camera acts funny at the beginning and then it catches up, so I'm hoping everything at the beginning goes fine. Um, we are on page 6. Hooray, you did it. You made it to page 6. It was the last page. So we're not really going to talk more. What we're going to talk about is how is the conflict resolved? How do we know it's resolved? And then we'll keep looking a little bit at that characterization. So his grandpa was telling him the story of the medicine bag. Then the terrible thing happened to Ironshell. He and several other young men were taken to their homes by soldiers and sent far away to a white man's boarding school. Y'all, this actually did happen to Native Americans. This is historically accurate. He was angry and lonesome for his parents and the young girl he had wed before he was taken away. At first, Ironshell resisted the teacher's attempts to change him, and he did not try to learn. One day, it was his turn to work at the school's blacksmith shop. He walked into the place and he knew that his medicine bag had brought him there to learn and to work with the white man's iron. So you see this whole idea of destiny in their culture. It's pretty neat. But yeah, this did actually happen. Native American boys were taken from their homes and put into boarding camps against their will, where they were, they like to say they were modernized, which pretty much means they were forced to accept white American culture. Ironshell became a blacksmith and worked at the trade when he returned to the reservation. All his life he treasured the medicine bag. When he was old and I was a man, he gave it to me, for no one made the vision quest any more. Grandpa talked, and I stared in disbelief as he covered his face with his hands, and his shoulders were shaking with the quiet sobs, and I looked away until he began to speak. So this is just one of those moments where it's you get a little bit of emotion from Grandpa, so you learn about how Grandpa actually experiences emotion, and then you get to see that respect this young man has for his grandpa reinforced, because he didn't watch his grandpa cry, which is a very respectful thing to do, typically, because it's a cultural thing that men just don't really cry that much, and if you do, you don't watch them. I kept the bag until my son, your mother's father, was a man and had to leave us to fight in the war across the ocean. I gave him the bag, for I believed it would protect him in battle, but he did not want to take it with him. He was afraid he would lose it, and he died in a faraway place. That's very sad. Again, Grandpa was still, and I felt his grief around me. My son, he went on, clearing his throat, had only one daughter, and it is not proper for her to know these things. He unbuttoned his shirt and pulled out the leather pouch and lifted it over his head. He held it in his hand, turning it over and over, as if mesmerizing how it looked. In the bag, he said, as he opened it and removed two objects, is the broken shell of the iron kettle, the pebble from the book, and a piece of sacred sage. He held the pouch upside down and dust drifted out. So sage is a plant. So this is just kind of telling you the sage dried and is now dust. After the bag is yours, you must piece the prairie sage, get a piece of prairie sage within and never open it again until you pass it on to your son. He replaced the pebble in the piece of iron and tied the bag. So right here we're learning, so we have this internal conflict where he's been embarrassed about his culture and everything else. Now we get a task. Okay, so if he receives this medicine bag, he has to go do this task. Okay, so this is what the character has to really do to fully prove that he has overcome his conflict. And I've been putting IC to just say internal conflict. I stood up, somehow knowing I should. So again, we got that growth here. He's starting to feel a little in tune with his culture. He's getting the cues from his grandpa. Grandpa slowly rose from the bed and stood upright in front of me, holding the bag before my face. I closed my eyes and waited for him to slip it over my head, but he spoke. You no need to wear it. He placed his soft leather bag in the right hand and closed my other hand over it. It wouldn't be right to wear it in this time and place where no one will understand. Put it safely away until you are again on the reservation. Wear it then when you replace the sacred stage. So this just goes and reinforces the task. This is like Grandpa wanting him to prove himself, because he's seen this conflict going on inside him. So Grandpa turned again and sat on the bed, wearily leaned in his head against the pillow. Go, he said. I will sleep now. Thank you, Grandpa, I said softly, and left with the bag in my hands. That night, Mom and Dad took Grandpa to the hospital. 2 weeks later, I stood alone in the prairie on the reservation and put the sacred sage in my medicine bag. So this is how we know the conflict is resolved. I was writing everything in the wrong order. Conflict is resolved. So we know the conflict's resolved. He is at peace with his shame with his culture, okay, or that he's embraced his culture. So this is where you can see that final little bit of growth. So this is our growth, our last moment where he really does meet the expectations set by his grandpa. So we have to think to ourselves, so the conflict was that he was ashamed of his culture, and then how did he go and prove it? How was it resolved? It was resolved by him embracing his culture. So our question for our theme for this is, what did he learn? What did the character learn about his shame and accepting his culture? That would be our theme question. So I just want you to hold on to that in your head, because it'll be something that we go back and look at later. And congratulations, you made it through the video. I hope they were very helpful as you annotated on your own.